Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's session Strategic Decision Making CEO's Guide to Optimal Information Security. I am Shilpa Goswami, and I'll be your host for the day. Before we get started, we would like to go over a few house rules. For our attendees, the session will be in listen only mode and will last for an hour, out of which the last 15 minutes will be dedicated to Q&A. If you have any question during the webinar to organizer or our speaker, please use the Q&A window. Also, if you face any audio video challenges, please check your internet connections or you may log out and log in again. Our speaker for today's session, Cher A. Cher is a true data geek who's been solving the data puzzle for over 35 years. As the president and founder of Fox Consulting, she advises organizations to proactively define and optimize their processes and enhance quality standards to resolve their most painful data insight issues. Her decades of deep practitioner experience in data analytics and business intelligence specialize in crafting and executing strategic analytics roadmaps for global companies dealing with complex financial data solutions. Additionally, Cher guides senior leaders on confidently leveraging their existing software assets to overcome their technology challenges, facilitating better experiences in making data-driven business decisions while also resulting in significant time and money savings on maintenance and support. She is recognized internationally, having spoken at 19 conferences, and is known for campaigning excellence, empowering organizations to embrace change, and unlocking the full potential of their data assets. Cher also serves as a VP of Marketing for the Dama Rocky Mountain chapter. Without any further delay, I would hand over the session to you, Cher.
Great, thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening from wherever you are joining us in the world. Welcome and thank you for joining. So my name is Cher Fox. I was named after the singer. My mother used to work for her and Sonny back in the late 1960s. My IT journey began when I started programming at the age of 12, long before we had STEM programs, on a Commodore 64 home computer. By the age of 15, while I was still in high school, I started programming mainframe applications for those light-up coasters that they give you at restaurants like Chili's or Outback to use for table reservations. I then did spend 10 years in the corporate world, where I ended my career in mergers and acquisitions before I started my own consulting company at the age of 25, prior to Y2K. On the agenda today, I will clarify CEO and executive roles in cybersecurity, where they materially participate and where they ultimately just lead and oversee. I'll discuss the importance of regular risk assessments, and we'll review an assessment framework. We'll dive into strategies and frameworks to optimize strategic decision-making in information security and explore why this needs to happen more rapidly in today's cyber landscape. And I'll share some proactive measures to safeguard those organizational assets, explaining why we need to be proactive as opposed to reactive in these volatile environments. So what is the current landscape of cyber attacks targeting businesses? How and why are they attacking? How big is your attack surface, and how can you minimize that? We want to make sure to take a look at all the perspectives, pieces and parts, and really dig deep to find out what they're really after. And it's not just about the cyber attack. How are they getting their foothold? And what are the consequences for attacks? As we start with prosecuting the smaller crimes, does that help deter the commitment of the larger offenses? And what does that mean to redefining our security vision? When customers want greater access to their data, and by meeting those needs, we are increasing our exposure to possible attacks. And we definitely can't discount the effects of quantum and generative AI. The bad guys are really coming at us at the speed of their iteration and learning, which leaves us more questions about how we adapt and protect ourselves and our assets. Risk management involves a diverse and complex set of risks, as well as potential business impacts. We can thank quantum and AI for the rapid evolution in TTPs. We have seen the benefits of merging AI, the Internet of Things, the cloud, and blockchain. But again, those technologies also introduce us to larger attack surfaces. Interconnectivity spans networks, devices, and our third-party vendors, again, more attack surface. But really the biggest challenge for executives is how to balance the large investment in emerging technology against the investment in things that truly drive business. Meeting those regulatory requirements is very specific and costly. And we have to ensure that we are investing in the things that drive value in our business versus just meeting regulatory requirements. And regulations are reactive. They may track risks and have them on the books for quite some time, then address them at the closing of the risk. But by then, the risk may no longer exist, or it's escalated. Maybe it's been delayed so long, now it's not a solvable problem, or it's not a problem worth solving. So again, how do we adapt and protect ourselves and our assets? CEOs and executives, they're just truly instrumental in driving the success of our organization's information security program. Their supervision of security awareness efforts is essential for promoting a culture of security that just spans our entire organization, from the executive suite to our frontline employees. Their leadership from the top down and by example, oversight of processes, policies, and communications, and strategic guidance really help ensure that security is prioritized for us and resources are allocated effectively, risks are managed appropriately, and we're well prepared to address security challenges and protect our sensitive information. And depending upon the size of your organization, the CEO may not be directly involved in every step. They really just want to ensure that systems and processes are established and measured. But they do, however, need to appoint people they trust to key protection roles to manage those systems and processes and communicate and collaborate with. So we know there are various entry points for attacks: phishing emails, malware, and social engineering. Deloitte recently published a white paper that the largest threat out there is phishing. And let's think about why people do social engineering. They create that familiarity with someone inside our organization, and obtaining that and that trust makes it easier for them to gain access to what they're searching for. And we have to remember our attackers are very patient. They will eventually get the job done. So there's a persistence in their efforts to keep on coming. They really only have to be right once. We have to be right all the time. Humans are unfortunately the single most point of failure, unintentionally as victims of phishing or social engineering, or possibly intentional as an insider threat. We really have to invest in the human factor, reducing our skills gap and increasing training. We can't afford resource shortages or gaps in our defense and incident response capabilities. So these are some strategies to identify vulnerabilities within IT frameworks. I just discussed the importance of employee training and awareness, and I'm going to talk later about how that applies to third-party vendors. But I'd like to point out that many of these strategies will be difficult to implement on legacy systems. Those are a huge challenge to untangle and very expensive to relaunch, but they cannot be ignored. Next year, that situation becomes huge +1. The following year, huge +10. The problem just becomes exponentially harder to solve the longer it's put off. And the only real way to get there is a decision from the pocketbook and in how we make our investments. Sometimes this decision is about solving the current problem. Sometimes it redefines a process so the problem doesn't occur again. And you have to ask yourself, If you were building today from scratch, setting aside all of those challenges, what would you do? Because often it's not worth going back and fixing old issues. We have to understand the current business value and obtain this buy-in to move forward. The risks assessed that align with our business objectives, they're often prioritized highest, along with risks that have the most financial impacts associated. We really have to identify, analyze, treat, review, and adapt to support continuous improvement. And balancing risk and opportunity in our information security decision-making, it requires a proactive and strategic approach that takes into consideration our organization's broader business objectives, evaluation of our cost and benefits of various security options, and we really want to foster collaboration and communication across the organization. Proactive data analytics through telemetrics can provide real-time feedback to improve our overall threat intelligence and strengthen our organization's security posture. So striking the right balance between security and opportunity can effectively manage our security risks while also enabling business growth and innovation. So this is a process to assess and quantify risks associated with cyber threats. When establishing the context of a risk, we really want to define the scope, objectives, and constraints. And as we identify those risks, we have to review documentation, interview our stakeholders, and analyze historical data and incident reports. As we assess, we're analyzing the likelihood and potential impact of identified risks using qualitative or quantitative analysis techniques. So just to explain those in difference, qualitative is a subjective assessment, really based on expert judgment. Quantitative uses numerical data, maybe mathematical models, to calculate risk, and our metrics such as exposure and expected loss. When we evaluate, we really determine the significance and priority of the risk. And as we treat, we develop and implement treatment strategies like security controls, policies, procedures. Treatment is the 3 R's: repair, replace, and retire. And as we continue to monitor, we will identify new and emerging risks and evaluate the effectiveness of our risk mitigation efforts. We really need to hold regular reviews every 6 months or less. We have to have an end-to-end process. We can't just set it and forget it. So what are some best practices for effective risk management and risk assessments? We really need to engage all the people: senior management, IT, operations, definitely legal, and compliance in the process to ensure comprehensive coverage and buy-in. We should use standards and frameworks like ISO, IEC, NIST, or FAIR to ensure consistency and reliability in our process. So using a combination of that quantitative and that qualitative analysis techniques will really provide us a holistic view of our risk. And we have to document identified risks and analyze the results and recommend treatment strategies and then communicate those upward. So we have to keep our assessments iterative, which requires regular assessment and refinement. And we need to integrate the risk activities into our business processes, like strategic planning, project management, and compliance initiatives. And we have to embed them into our day-to-day processes. Our goal really is to constantly seek opportunities to improve, enhance our methodologies, refine our analysis techniques, and address the gaps and shortcomings that are identified throughout our processes. By investing in cutting-edge security technologies, we can really strengthen our cybersecurity defenses, which will help mitigate the emerging threats and adapt to the evolving cyber landscape effectively. We may implement zero trust architecture. Cisco has a great platform for this, where we invest and inspect in every request, and we authenticate every user and device, and we access all the permissions before granting access. And then we're continually assessing and reassessing as context and activity changes. We could use advanced cloud native platforms like CrowdStrike to protect our endpoints, our cloud workloads, our identities, and our data. We can secure our endpoint devices using Tanium. We can implement a software-defined network, separating our control and data planes. Some of examples of that are network virtualization, switching fabrics, traffic engineering, and accessing networks utilizing something like Archer. Executives really need to evaluate their organization's specific security requirements, our risk profile, and our budget constraints before we make strategic investments in these kinds of technologies. And they may need to combine their investments so both IT and cyber can move forward. Measuring return on our investments can be really challenging. So security investments often focus on that risk reduction and mitigation rather than generating revenue. However, there are several ways we can assess the effectiveness of our security investments and determine the ROI. I've listed some areas of measurement examples here. By using a combination of these metrics, we can effectively measure the return on investment in our security expenditures, and we need to demonstrate the value of security investments to stakeholders, including executive management, our board members, investors, and those regulatory authorities. Really, the overall goal is simply to lower our risk. So let's talk about frameworks for information security success. CMMI is a framework to assess and improve the maturity of an organization's processes. COBIT was developed by ISACA and is a governance and management platform for enterprise IT framework. COSO provides a comprehensive approach to managing risk across an entire organization. FAIR is a quantitative risk analysis framework to assess information security risks in financial terms. FFIEC is a set of uniform principles, standards, and report forms for the federal examination of financial institutions. ISO IEC is that international standard to manage information security management systems. We're probably all very familiar with NIST as a framework set of guidelines, standards, and best practices to manage our cyber risk. And SABSA is an enterprise security architecture that aligns with business objectives. So which security standards or government policies do you need to implement? ISO IEC covers risk management, access control, cryptography, physical security, and compliance with legal and regulatory requirements. NIST has those 5 core functions: identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. We can use that standard to assess and improve our cyber posture. PCI DSS protects payment card data and cardholder information. HIPAA has security standards to protect our electronically protected health information in the healthcare industry. We're all familiar that GDPR exists, and its data protection and privacy regulation protects individual personal data in the European Union. FISMA, it's a US federal law of information security requirements for federal agencies and contractors. FedRAMP also offers a standard approach to security authorizations for cloud service offerings. CCPA is the state of California's consumer control over the personal information that our businesses collect about us when we use their websites. And we can't forget the others like Sarbanes-Oxley for publicly traded companies or the Federal Trade Commission Act for consumer protection. So what are some industry best practices? We have to remember that every industry is different And each industry does have their own specific set of standards and best practices. So as we implement our security standards, they should comply with and align with our industry standard. We also want to try and have our policies and procedures well defined before we purchase tools, so we can find tools that support our governance, as opposed to having to mold our governance to a tool that we've chosen, which might be really resistant in our culture. Businesses following these practices can effectively comply and align with industry standards, which helps to enhance our security posture and demonstrate a commitment to protecting sensitive information, while we maintain trust, which is huge today, with our stakeholders and mitigate those cyber risks. So developing a robust incident response strategy, it's really critical for our organizations to effectively detect, respond to, and recover from cybersecurity incidents. These are a few key steps we need to take to develop such a strategy. And remember, our CEO and many of our executives, they may not be directly involved in all of these processes. We expect them to allocate the resources for the incident response team. They should oversee the definition of the incident response plan. They're definitely going to guide the identification and prioritization of risks, especially when it comes to alignment with business objectives and financial impacts. And they will most likely engage the most in communication protocols. So it's imperative that our CEO has an executive and a management team that can directly lead the organization through this process. So this provides some examples of really the how in our incident response plan. Our incident response team should be a cross-functional group. They may come from data governance councils or committees, IT governance councils or committees. We need them to be across departments and across roles. We have to clearly outline our procedures and our protocols. Then document and socialize them. They can't be kept a secret. Everyone has to be involved in that education. And then we need to train and educate everyone. Again, that human factor is our biggest point of risk failure. So conducting those attack simulations frequently will help us assess our readiness. If we don't do so well, we need to review, we need to update, we need to adapt, and we need to repeat. Every incident deserves a thorough retrospective. We have to learn, adapt, and grow from every single instance. So by following this plan and implementing a proactive and comprehensive approach, we're enabled to effectively mitigate that impact on our cybersecurity incidents, and minimize disruption to our business operations. Business continuity, this is huge. We want our business continuity strategies to ensure our organizational resilience in the face of cyber attacks. So let's discuss the difference between resilience and disaster recovery. Resilience is when we lose capacity, but not capability. So our process pipeline is going to shrink down a lot. Disaster recovery, where we're backing up and failing over, is for when that moment in time we lose all capability. Most legacy systems fall into that latter category. They're just too old to integrate into a resilience model. And full disaster recovery efforts are very complicated to do. Depending upon the size of our organization, there may be hundreds of applications that are going to require an orderly, or maybe even a disorderly, shutdown in times of crisis. So the resilient model is more expensive up front. There's a huge investment in putting all of that in place so we can utilize it. But we are going to utilize it every day. We're going to get the benefit of it all the time. We've already been running out of that site all the time anyway. Whereas disaster recovery, things have to come all the way down. They have to be booted up in another environment. We have to move data over. We have to move information over. It's a much more involved process, and it's very reactive. The point of our risk mitigation is to be proactive, not reactive. Again, we have that emphasis on employee training and awareness. They really are our front line. Strategies like this focus on maintaining our critical business functions, and they minimize disruption to our operations during and after a cyber incident. Implementing these can strengthen our resilience or even our disaster recovery, if that's the plan that best fits our organization, from cyber attacks, and minimizes the impact of disruptions on our critical business operations, really ensuring the continuity of our services and safeguarding our reputation and our bottom line. So it's very important to our customers, now that they have so much access to our data and their data, that they can't be down. I mean, how many times have you logged in or attempted to log in to a website and it's down? Something's not working, error 404. That's really frustrating for us. We may be trying to schedule payments that are due today, and if the system is down on my due date, I'm going to incur a late fee. So from a customer perspective, business continuity is really just huge in today's digital age. So what are some good calls to action as takeaways? You know, we see that training and awareness programs is at the top of this list. It's not a coincidence. People are the biggest point of failure, and we can give them the knowledge and the education so that they're truly vigilant in the defense of our assets. You know, we hear the rumors and people are spreading the good word that AI is going to remove the people factor, but it's not. People are still going to need to be here, engaging in these processes, thinking like the other people that they're up against. So it's important that we keep our focus on the human factor. Some people get really, really excited about attacking, and some people get really, really excited about defending. And when your defenders do that great job, celebrate them. It's so important that they understand that their hard work and that their efforts are really appreciated by the organization. If they save you a bunch of money from a financial impact, give them a bonus. What does it hurt? You know, really engaging and keeping our people happy is just so paramount for risk mitigation. So taking these calls to action really to heart can effectively implement strategic decisions for your organizational security. Our goals are to strengthen our security posture, mitigate the impact of our security risks, and the constant threats to our operations, our reputation, and even our bottom line. So these are some key takeaways from this talk. There really is a surge in cyber attacks due to the diverse threat landscapes we previously mentioned, the growing sophistication in attack techniques, and they're only going to get smarter and they're only going to get faster. the advancements in technology, they're just so rapid. We have to constantly stay on top of them. We can't, there's no day off. There's just no day off. Regulation requirements and updates to compliance, they may not happen as frequently as we'd like to see, but they do happen frequently, and we do have to have people focused on those so that we are at least reacting as fast as we can to those. And maybe your organization is the first place that that style of attack has ever happened. So you're going to be reporting it, and hopefully you have a great team that can come up with strategies to treat that risk, and then you can share that to move the regulatory requirements and that compliance faster for other organizations. Our CEO's role is really to oversee the protection of our critical assets. We need them to help us manage the risk. It's everyone's job, top down, bottom up. We have to meet those regulatory requirements. I mean, we don't want to waste money on fines or penalties. Budgets are tight enough these days. I'm sure we can think of so many other ways that we would like to see our organization spending that money, whether that's resources, new tools, process improvement. Interconnected ecosystems are still a challenge for us, and they get bigger and bigger and more vast every day. And we need to build trust and confidence by promoting a culture of security where everyone is responsible and everyone's enabled. I mean, it's okay to be responsible for something, but we really have to be enabled to react and to participate. Almost done. We want to enable that business continuity. That's hugely important, whether we're going to implement a resilient environment or we're just going to do backup and failover. We really want to be supporting innovation and growth throughout this. Risk mitigation, it just doesn't happen in a silo, and it can enable us to protect the assets that we need, that we are the products that we're building sorry, my brain just went poo. The products that we're building to innovate our company. And we want to demonstrate cyber leadership from the top down. Our CEO's preparedness for addressing our security breaches will ensure our operational resilience. And one final point. This really is a journey without an end. In order to adapt, we have to continuously review and improve. We can't just set it and forget it. There's value in our retrospectives where we are reviewing, updating, adapting to the cyber threats that we're faced with in our organizations every day, every month, every quarter. And they're coming more often and faster every day. So thank you for joining me today. I hope you found some value in our insights about the CEO and even just executives' roles in our organization in cybersecurity. This presentation isn't just for executives and CEOs. As people that work for them, that report up to them, it's important for you to understand what you should expect of them and what you may need to ask of them so that you can do your job on the front lines most successfully.
Thank you very much, Cher, for delivering such an insightful and informative session. We found the webinar very engaging and hope it was valuable for you as well. Now, before we begin with the Q&A part, I would like to inform all the attendees that AC Council's C&D maps to many roles in the industries like network security engineer, network security administrator, network security analyst, network security architect, network defense technician, security operator, etc. Anyone with a C&D certification is eligible for 135,000 plus job vacancies globally with an average salary of $85,613 per annum. If you're interested to know more, please take part in the poll that's going to be conducted now. Let us know your preferred mode of training and we will reach out to you soon. So, Cher, shall we start with the Q&A?
Yes, please.
Okay, so our first question to you is, what are the best frameworks for implementing information security?
We went over those. We had a whole slide. So NIST provides us with a framework. ISO IEC provides us with a framework. There was so many. CCMI. If I'm allowed to backtrack through my slides, we listed many of them here. FAIR as well. So again, some frameworks are going to be industry specific. So you're going to have to evaluate, what's going to be most effective for your industry and the size of your organization.
Thank you, Cher, for answering that question. Our next question is, how can we ensure our teams are not getting burned out from the constant barrage of cyber attacks?
We all keep hearing that there's so many jobs open in cybersecurity and there's no unemployment in cybersecurity. But I think companies are still careful about their spending in cybersecurity. We have to have robust teams that can share the load. If we don't, then we will be burning out our existing people. I mean, that's no different than people that work on a 24/7 help desk of technical support. You have to share that load. And if your organization isn't doing that, then you have to have a talk with your management and with your leaders, because tired people aren't going to be able to defend your organization well. Burnt out people aren't going to be able to do their job well. So it's really important that we are taking care of our people, assessing them to a certain extent, asking them how they feel and how they're doing, and having a tiered response team that can take over the incident response, after every 8 hours. That's a lot of people to be involved. It's a really beautiful opportunity because it can really provide jobs out there, which in tech we desperately need right now. We have so many more people that are looking for work than there is work available. So, very much like a help desk, we would need to rotate our people through. We need to relieve our people and give them a break. And if that's not happening in your organization, don't just sit there and take it. Raise your hand, ask for a one-on-one meeting with your manager. Let them know what you're seeing, amongst your team. Maybe it's yourself, maybe it's a coworker that you're just seeing that's really burnt out, and they're honestly too tired to speak up for themselves. One more battle just isn't in their capabilities. So you have to take care of each other. That team is really important, that they care about each other and they look after each other, and that they're willing to help each other out and relieve each other.
Thank you, Cher. Our next question to you is, to what level can we rely on AI and ML in risk mitigation or assessment?
Machine learning and AI, it's still growing up. It's Some say it's, still at a prepubescent level of maturity. Some say it's a teenager running rampant. We still, as humans, have to teach our AI. We have to teach our machines the right things to do. They're just not there yet, and there's not enough organizations that are prepared to implement those from data strategy perspectives, etc. But the biggest challenge that we have with implementing generative AI and machine learning is our legacy applications. They just won't play well together. And modernizing our legacy applications, we have to get rid of those old ones because they don't know how to deal with today's tech. And it's really a hole in most organizations' environments. AI, quantum, it can break the 1024 encryption of today, in a matter of minutes with quantum. But that biggest hidden risk that no one wants to talk about is it's expensive. It's expensive to upgrade our old legacy applications. If it wasn't, we'd have already done it. That vast mix of legacy applications that are often very core to our businesses because mainframes do what mainframes do well. And even some newer applications, most of our financial institutions, they run on older legacy systems, yet most of our financial institutions have some of the most regulatory and compliance requirements. So, those mainframes are not always in the most protected mode, and the effort to upgrade them is enormous, potentially beyond, what your entire IT budget is for the year. So to double that or to triple that is just not in every organization's, opportunity purview. Some companies are still running COBOL, and it's kind of a dirty little secret. We shove it under the carpet and we don't worry about it. Security is really about that weakest link, and the weakest link is our old stuff. We can look to OpenShift architecture. That ecosystem can modernize and really give us performance improvements. We find that a lot of organizations, they have the best of breed of applications out there. So we picked the best business intelligence tool, and we picked the best data warehousing tool, and we picked the best customer relationship management system or the best ERP. But if all of those vendors are separate and they're the best of their breed, how do they play together nice in our information security ecosystem? That might be a really great way that AI and machine learning can help us to bridge the gaps between those applications. Because obviously, the vendors are competing. Their goal isn't to always make their tool the most adaptable to play nice with their competitors' tools. So unless organizations implement one vendor's entire ecosystem for their information security, there's going to be some challenges in getting everyone to play nice together in the sandbox. And that might be a great place that AI and ML, as I previously said, could help out. AI and machine learning, they're growing, and they're growing fast. So they will be there at some point to help us at some levels with our risk mitigation, but they're not quite there yet. So it's going to take more time. It's going to take more organizations implementing them successfully. And what another organization teaches AI or ML, that may not be what your organization needs to teach it. So even if someone else has been doing it for years, if you try to use that, it might not be smart enough for your environment yet. So you're going to have to spend some time teaching it and overseeing it and growing and learning with it. So it's definitely going to be a collaborative growth process for both the humans and for the tech.
Thank you, Cher, for answering that question. Our next question is, any suggestion on how to prove the worth of the security team to upper management?
It's a really good question. um, we as women in tech talk about a seat at the table all the time. And that doesn't just apply to women. Having a seat at the table is really important. Being a trusted resource within your organization is really important. You do need to follow your organization's chain of command, but cybersecurity is really important. And if one person's not listening, then you need to find the ear of someone else. Hopefully, you know, that escalation, not hopefully, your escalation needs to be defined in your incident response plan. And your executives should have overseen that and agreed to that, as an agreement between, from the top down. So they're difficult conversations to have, and not everyone, again, we go back to the people. Not everyone has the energy to battle that hill if it's severely uphill. So we want to keep those channels open. We want to collaborate, having a cross-functional group, across departments, across roles, having a governance council or committee that you can take these things to if your defined escalation path isn't working for you. So cybersecurity is important. And I mean, nobody wants to be on the other side of an incident saying, I told you so. Oof, but we never want to be there. Or you didn't listen to me. But employees that aren't listened to don't tend to stay on our teams or in our environments either. They will jump ship and go somewhere else to where they do feel heard. So I think it's important to really have clear definitions around roles and responsibilities, have that communication and escalation path upward, and follow that. And if you're finding that that's not working, then now's the time. Review, assess, analyze what's not working, make those course corrections, move forward. If it doesn't happen again, repeat. So it's going to be really important that that is part of our continuous improvement process, is, getting that communication up to management, having them not only hear you, but listen and understand. So, and a lot of the ways of doing that is the same ways that I may communicate to executives about data. It has to be aligned with business objectives. And, I think when you're talking financial impacts, everybody's ears open. So I hope that helps.
Thank you, Cher. We'll take last two questions for the day. Do you have any advice how to communicate with the C-suites and board of directors?
I think I really just explained that. I think it's kind of a bit of a duplicate question. Your stakeholders, your board of directors, your executive team, they're all going to be in your escalation protocols for in your incident response plan. So, and if they're not, then you need to ask why and get them inserted. They have to be in there. They have to prioritize how much effort we're going to put into into treating a risk and recovering from it. Very few people that are in more doer roles than leader roles are going to have the authority to instigate a disaster and recovery and take systems down for whatever period of time it's going to take to reboot them. That really has to come from the higher ups, because they're going to take the beating for it when the customers complain, when vendors complain, when your internal customers complain. So that communication process should really be included in your incident response plan. If there's more details about like what is being communicated to those folks, then maybe I can elaborate, but I think I've covered it.
Thank you, Cher. Our last question for the day is how to convince higher management for investment in IT? Because we have risk high, impact huge, incident frequency low. Because we are weapon, it's waste in battle to fight with the attackers. Like it's like how to convince higher management.
So just because your incidents are low right now, they're not going to stay that way. It's, as I mentioned, our attackers are coming faster and faster. They're very persistent. I think we see the financial impact that other organizations are experiencing, in the news, in our social media feeds. We know the expense of incidents to not address that because your incident response is low and not make that investment, that really exposes you to what's coming. And we can't always figure out how to deal with the unknown. But we want to be prepared for it. And, again, we don't want to be on the other side of an incident saying, I told you so. That doesn't look good for anybody, no matter where you are positioned in your organization. So we have to keep those lines of communication open. Suggest a tiered approach into increasing your cybersecurity defenses. You don't have to do it all in one fell, swoop of financials. Propose a tiered plan, a tiered rollout, so that it's something that your organization can grow over time, instead of just, no, that's not right for us right now. We're not going to do anything. That's never a good idea. There should always be money in the budgets, included in the strategic planning, for cyber resources, whether that's people, products, tools, etc. If your organization isn't doing that, they're really setting themselves up for a really nasty incident that none of us want to see in the news. We don't want to see that our cloud data platform that we're trusting a cloud vendor with, that they've had a breach. There's a misconception that when we put our data and our information in the cloud, that it's more secure. It's actually less secure. And we can't take our vendor's word on the level of security. We have to protect our own assets and our own reputation, and our own business. So take a look at what's happening in your incident response plan again. Make sure that communication plan is going up, and that you are iteratively moving forward with cybersecurity solutions. So maybe the conversation's been awkward. It's been, oh my gosh, we need to spend all this money. Do we need to spend all this money? Maybe we just really, what do you really need to spend? We really need to spend this amount this year, or this amount this quarter. Okay, and how does that align with the business objective? Again, you have to speak to them in their terms: business objectives, financial impacts, costs. So I hope that helps.
Thank you so much, Chair, and thank you again to our wonderful speaker. And for answering these questions and for the great presentation and knowledge shared with our global audiences. It was a pleasure to have you with us, and we are looking for more and more sessions with you. Now, before we conclude the webinar, would you please like to give a small message to our audience? Thank you so much, Cher, for answering those questions and for the great presentation and knowledge shared with our global audiences. It was a pleasure to have you with us, and we are looking for more and more sessions with you. Before we conclude the webinar, would you like to give a small message to our audience?
I think I've given it, but take care of your people. Your people are really the most important piece of this puzzle. Take care of each other, take care of your company, reward your people for their efforts. It's a continuous battle, as your questions have confirmed. And unfortunately, it's only going to keep coming. So, but we can do it. We can do it together. So take care of yourself, take care of your people, take care of your assets, take care of your organization, take care of your management and your executives. You know, the more you take care of them, the more they, you know, they'll take care of you. So good luck. Happy cybering.
Thank you so much, Cher, for the message to our audiences.